Everybody, welcome to BrickVault. Today we're taking a closer look at another extension to the expanding universe of LEGO Micro Star Wars ships. These awesome little Clone Wars designs are from the builder Fukusaku, the same designer for the first and second Micro Clone Wars waves, and all scaling together. We've got some ETA-2 Jedi Interceptors, the Delta-7 Jedi Starfighters, a few different colored Republic Y-wings, one very thin V19 Torrent, as well as a sleek little V-wing. And then for the Separatists, we have the Vulture droids with also the episode 1 colors included, a larger Hyena bomber big brother, and the much smaller and rounder droid Trifighter. Micro designs often have some of the most unique and creative detailing connections in all of LEGO custom building, which makes them some of my favorite creations to both build and also talk about in a video. But first, before we jump into these details, let me say that if you did want to build any of these for a fleet of your own, the instructions can be found at our web store, www.brickvault.toys. Included with each purchase are the PDF step-by-step building guides, a digital parts list for quickly uploading and ordering all the pieces you'll need online, and all our models are built IRL, tested for strength, the instructions are tested for the ease of building, and we also try to avoid using rare parts in the build as much as possible. It's amazing getting to work with some of the best builders from all over the world, and buying instructions is a great way to help support us and the talented people we work with like Fukusaku, who, like I said earlier, made this first wave of Micro Clone Wars Republic designs. Then the Separatist ground forces came along, all built to the same 1:50 scale. But on top of that, he's also got some highly detailed construction vehicles and a small Republic frigate. Click that link in the description below if you'd like to get started. And now let's take a closer look at each of these builds, and I'll try to highlight some of my favorite strange pieces and connections for you. Let's start off with some ships that I don't think need an intro. These are the Jedi Interceptors. The 4x2 wedge plate that recently came out, or about a year ago came out, is a game changer for micro building, especially because it's a plate that comes to a point. Now the angled edges are parallel to each other for the interceptors, which makes for their unique triangular shape, but the eye-catching bit on this ship for sure is the use of that egg piece for the cockpit. The Delta-7s use the same wedge plate like before, but this time their flat edges are facing inwards towards each other, so they're also closer together, and the ship is distinctively sharper looking. Personally, my favorite bit for this model is actually on the underside, and it's how the hinge tops sandwich around the display stand connection. There's a lot of little models, so we're going pretty quick. Next up is the biggest starfighter of this particular wave, the Republic Y-wings. Easily one of my favorite bits of lived-in lore for the Star Wars universe. These plated Y-wings are in fact the same starfighters as seen in the original trilogy, only their plating had been taken off because engineers had to repair the internals so often they didn't bother putting them back on. I think the shape for this model was pulled off really well. The highlights for me are the use of the grille slopes right behind the cockpit, which is a bit large in terms of texturing, but there is a massive intake on the ship in this area of the model, and in my mind that detail translates pretty darn well. Now the V19 has maybe my favorite building technique in this whole group. The lever bottom happens to grip a flag piece just right, and that's exactly what you want to use for such a thin ship at this scale. It's used to attach the guns on either side of the wing, as well as the center intake, plus it's used to connect the ship to its stand. On top of that, the V19 folds super easily into its landed configuration, which is a major plus in my book, because micros can sometimes be a bit more delicate than larger models, and this slim build is surprisingly easy to handle. Now the same goes for the V-wing. There is a particular bent angle for those clipped in flexible spike pieces that make up the nose, and the whole model is very strong, with the boomerangs making up the angled wings on the outside being an excellent touch. The nose in particular sells the look of this micro build best in my opinion, and all these models went through some pretty rigorous testing, but the designer in particular made great efforts here to keep this connection and also maintain a solid structure. It's now time for the Separatists. These little flyers are the meat and potato fighters for the entire army. We've got the Vulture droids. I really appreciate the effort here to keep the body narrow on this fighter. This helps register the shape from afar for me personally, but by far the most fun detail that I can see is the single red minifigure hand clipping onto the tooth. It sells the glowing red eyes around the head extremely well, and it's such an unlikely kind of connection that it almost feels like the pieces specifically were designed to pull off this exact detail. Now jumping on over to the Hyena bomber, the Vulture droid's big brother, those flexible spikes make a second appearance. The distinct angular tips that you have at the end of each one of these helps define the shape of the bomber's wings, which actually works really well because they're quite different when you look at them compared to the Vulture droid. Also, the blade claw on the second ordnance pod defines some of those deeper grooves in the droid, which is a nice touch, and it just shows that Fukusaka was really paying attention to the original source material when trying to knock out all the little accurate details. Now let's finish off with the Droid Tri-Fighter. The most distinct build feature in my mind are the clipped-on quarter round tiles. It illustrates the three-sided curve shape while still allowing for a small space around the circular center. The unicorn horn is as good a piece as any to help sell that look of the main cannon, and bang, there you go. These are just some of my favorite details on these little ships, but really each of these builds is layered with unconventional connections. The interesting thing about micro builds is that because they're so small, each of these models can and was built and rebuilt from the ground up time and time again. Fukusaka did a great job weighing out the fundamentals of proportional accuracy, strength, and easy to recognize caricature detailing. They are an excellent addition to the growing and growing micro-scale fleets. Specifically, it really helps flesh out a lot of the Clone Wars fundamental vehicles, but there's much more than that that's already been created, and there is still more to come. So anyways, if you want to get the instructions, you can click that link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy our content, you can feel free to like, subscribe, comment, share, do whatever it is that you want to do. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time at BrickVault.